This card is a good one. Nurmagomedov looking to unify the lightweight championship against Justin Gaethje, who is the interim belt holder, and that is going to be on Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. Brett Okamoto, ESPN, joins us right now to take a closer look at what should be a tremendous fight here. We haven't seen Khabib in quite some time, but he made weight. Looks like he's ready to go. But, man, a lot of questions for him out there on Fight Island.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you mentioned, it's been a while since we've seen him, 13 months. And part of that was due, of course, to what's going on in the world. And then, in the meantime, he lost his father, who was responsible for getting him in the sport. He called his father his mentor, his best friend, his main coach. So obviously going through a very difficult loss personally for Khabib. And on to that, he's fighting a really, really good fighter in Justin Gaethje, who everything seems to be clicking for him right now. I mean, his year has actually gone incredible. He's coming off arguably the best performance. So you compare the year that Justin's had with the year that Khabib has had, and everything's gone pretty well for Justin. He came into the year not really knowing where he fit in the landscape of the lightweight division. Tony Ferguson was supposed to get the fight against Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yeah, the UFC was already talking about potentially Conor McGregor getting the shot after that. So you just kind of wondered where Justin fit in. And then he ends up getting an opportunity against Tony Ferguson and has the best performance of his career. And now here he is in this spot. And a lot of people, within the sport are saying that he's got the best shot of anybody who has fought Khabib over the last 29 fights.
Yeah, I was going to say, for most people, the casual fan who knows Khabib because he fought McGregor and obviously the back and forth with that, and then he hasn't been around. But since that fight, what makes this one such an interesting matchup? As you said, people thought it was going to be Khabib and Ferguson, and then boom, here's Gaethje. So why is this something that the casual fans can connect with?
I would say that, so you know how dominant Khabib is, right? And he's 28-0. You saw what he did to Conor McGregor. You see his wrestling, and just nobody knows what to do with him. I mean, he takes guys down, and then he talks to them in the middle of the octagon during his fights. That is how dominant this guy is. What gives Justin a chance, I think, boils down to three things. One is the confidence that he's got. He's coming in riding a huge high, one of the best performance of his career, fight win streak. He kind of made some adjustments after a couple losses a year ago, and he's looked fantastic since. He's looked basically perfect since. Two, he's a former collegiate wrestler. He's an All-American at the University of Northern Colorado, so he has that wrestling experience to negate what Khabib does so well. And the third, I think, is cardio, because one thing that people don't realize about Khabib, they see the wrestling, they're like, man, you can't stop it. But what's really going on also is making you very, very, very tired in there. And there's nothing worse, or there's nothing more useless than a tired fighter in the octagon. They just can't do anything. And that's what Khabib does. He makes them very tired. Justin has some of the best cardio I've seen in the sport. He trains at altitude in Denver. He puts himself through a very hard training camp. So those are three things that are in Justin's favor going into this fight. And I said it before, I think this is Khabib's toughest matchup of his career.
Now, they do have a couple of common opponents, Poirier, and, of course, they both fought Barboza. Obviously, Khabib won them both. Gaethje lost one of those fights. You take anything from the styles in those two fights and kind of project it out for Saturday?
No, it's really tough to take anything from like comparing similar opponents, because their fighting styles are so different. No one really does what Khabib does in terms of taking guys down, holding them against the fence, just making their life miserable. Justin tends to be more of a crowd-friendly, aesthetically pleasing type fighter. I mean, they call him the highlight for a reason. He gets into these kind of back and forth wars, but the fight he had with Dustin Poirier was actually one that kind of turned his career, because he had this back and forth battle. He got knocked out in the fourth round. He was on his way to the hospital, and he told his coach, I don't want to necessarily be just the most entertaining fighter in the world. I want to be the best fighter in the world. And that was a turning point. And since then, he's knocked out two guys in the first round, and then he had pretty much a perfect performance against Tony Ferguson. So there's not much you can compare in terms of how they'll fare with one another looking back at those fights, but the Dustin Poirier fight was a major turning point for Justin.
Brett Okamoto, ESPN. The fight is tomorrow afternoon, ESPN Plus, 2 o'clock. What are these two guys fighting for? What's the winner move forward to in this one? Obviously, you got the unification and stuff, but Khabib's got a very interesting, unclear future, I guess. And if Gaethje is to win this fight, what's next for these two guys? So what is the end game with the winner here?
So for Khabib, it's legacy. You win this fight, you check off another box of one of the guys that you have to beat, right? If you want to go down as the greatest lightweight of all time, the best fighter in the world, there are certain guys in that division you have to beat, and he's beaten some of them. He's already beaten Dustin Poirier. He's already beaten Conor McGregor. So now he can check off Justin Gaethje. And if he wants to walk away from the sport, which everybody, myself included, doesn't think Khabib is going to stick around for too long, he's not going to be one of those guys who fights into his late 30s, then he might only be looking at one more fight left. So for Khabib, it's legacy. It's securing that undefeated record, and it's potentially retiring 30-0, 31-0, whatever he decides to do. For Gaethje, it's about generational wealth, is what he told me. I mean, first and foremost, it's about proving that he's the number one guy. I think from a competitive standpoint, that's what's most important to him. But if he wins this fight, if he becomes the first guy to beat Khabib Nurmagomedov, first of all, his stock goes through the roof. And second of all, then he's holding something that Conor McGregor really wants, and that's the UFC lightweight championship. So if he holds that title, Conor's going to come calling to him. And when you got Conor chasing you, then you're in a very good position to demand a whole lot of money, and that's what Justin Gaethje is going to do.
Yeah, and Khabib has said he's not interested in even in that discussion. So I guess McGregor's out there trying to or rooting on Gaethje in this situation, right? And I guess anytime there's a
I
card,
don't think he'd mind. Yeah,
right. Anytime there's a card at that weight class, Conor's name always will come into play.
And that's weird. Is this week he's been talking about really the last 2 weeks he's been talking about fighting Dustin Poirier in January, and I'm sitting over here saying, why are you talking about a fight that does not include Justin Gaethje or Khabib Nurmagomedov? Don't you want to see what happens this weekend? And I think that is actually what is happening, because even though we've talked about that fight and Dana White has come out and said both guys have agreed to it, it's not signed. It's not official yet. So it would not surprise me if Justin Gaethje went out and won this weekend, if all of a sudden Conor McGregor's interest goes from Dustin Poirier to fighting Justin Gaethje, a guy he's never fought before, and a guy that I think Conor McGregor would feel pretty confident in. I think Conor knows that Khabib is a tough matchup for him. Obviously, they fought before and Khabib won. I think he looks at Justin Gaethje and says, Justin Gaethje is a boxer. He's a brawler. I'm a pinpoint knockout artist. I could knock that guy out. I think he'd go into that fight very confident.
ESPN Plus at 11, ESPN 2 at noon, and then pay-per-view at 2. If someone checks into the pay-per-view and gets Harris Volkov in that heavyweight, how many bombs are we going to see in this one?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Neither of these guys is in title contention at the moment, but this is what when you look at the UFC's construction of pay-per-view cards, different fights sort of fill different needs, right? And this one is a one that you're thinking you're going to see two big guys throwing shots. Neither one of these guys attempts a takedown per fight. Like if you look over the course of their UFC career, they average less than a takedown per fight, meaning that over the course of 15, they're not even attempting to take the other person down. This is going to be, it should be, the way it looks on paper, a stand-up kind of boxing fight between two guys who obviously have a lot of knockout power because they weigh over 225 pounds.
Then you have your co-main event with Whitaker here, and obviously most people, I think, are familiar with Whitaker, but, this is one of those things where this might, in my opinion, you watch the main event with Khabib and Gaethje, you might see a lot of, if Khabib runs it his way, you could see him just try to wear down, but these Whitaker and Cannonier could be something that really steals the show.
Yeah, I agree. Stylistically, it's a great fight, and just as a backstory, it's kind of one of those fun things in which Cannonier is a shiny new toy. He's the guy that the champion of that weight class, Israel Adesanya. He keeps talking about Cannonier. He says that's the guy. He looks like a monster. I want to fight him. And Whitaker is a former champion, a guy who's I think only lost one fight in his last 13 fights. I mean, he could still be one of the best 10 pound for pound fighters on the planet, in my opinion. Yet everybody seems to kind of be writing him off because he lost to Israel Adesanya, lost his belt to him. And he's always been kind of, quote unquote, boring outside of the cage. He doesn't really like to give interviews. He doesn't like to talk trash. But I always kind of like that situation where you got one guy who's kind of stealing the show and everybody's high on him and everybody's kind of already assuming like, hey, Jared Cannonier is going to be the guy to fight Israel Adesanya next. And then meanwhile, you've got a silent killer in Robert Whitaker. So I think Robert Whitaker's coming in very motivated. And to your point, stylistically, that should be a really fun fight.
It really should. Brett Okamoto, ESPN. It should be a fun day of fights. Wake up, get your coffee, and get yourself locked in. It's really going to be a fun one, leading you all the way up. Now, why did Dana decide to put this fight on? Why so early in the afternoon?
Well, it's and I'd forgotten this too. Last year when Khabib fought in Abu Dhabi, it was early as well. And this is This is a contract that they signed with a region over there. Abu Dhabi wants to be in the UFC business. They want to be in the events business. They believe that this is something that will attract people to that region and obviously generate some tourism money for them. So this is a 5-year deal where we're going to see a pay-per-view event or a title fight over there in Abu Dhabi that is catered more towards that region, which means it's going to be in their time zone. So anytime they can get Khabib over there, that's who they want. And that's been very clear. This deal has been in place now for 2 years, and both times it's been Khabib Nurmagomedov. So if you want to watch Khabib, and I don't think this is a bad thing, you got to get up a little bit early over here in the States and watch it, because it wouldn't surprise me if next year they go back to Abu Dhabi, they're asking for Khabib again, because obviously he's very popular over there.
All right. And then last but not least, we know with the fight weekend, it's not crazy to see guys retire and come back out. But what's the news with Henry Cejudo for the right price? It always seems to be the right price, but do you anticipate that there will be a right price?
I mean, gosh, how long has it been since Henry retired? What is it, like 4 months? And then he still calls out at least somebody a week. Henry Cejudo does not want to be retired. I think he's made enough money and he's content enough with his legacy that he doesn't have to fight. But he's certainly out there saying, hey, don't forget about me. If the right opportunity comes up, I am available. My services can be hired. I'm a hired gun for the UFC. So I don't think him saying that he's considering coming out of retirement changes anything for the UFC, but it's going to be situational based. When they have a need for Henry, his line will be open. He will take that phone call. I think we'll see him fight again. I just don't know when.
Brett Okamoto, ESPN. It's Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. Who is your pick for the fight?
Oh, man. I mean, I got to go with Khabib. I have to go with Khabib regardless of who he's fighting. I mean, 28 have tried, 28 have failed. But like I said earlier, I do think Justin does have the best chance to beat him of any fight in the UFC that I've seen Khabib. If I've never picked against Khabib, but if I was going to, Justin does make me think about it.
All right, you can check out all the action, ESPN, ESPN Plus, ESPN Pay-Per-View, Brett Okamoto with great coverage over at ESPN.com, and enjoy the fights. And, of course, everybody out there, check it out on ESPN Plus. Brett, we appreciate the time.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right, Brett Okamoto, ESPN, B. Okamoto, ESPN. That's how you can follow his coverage today.